he did ask me in earlier, the Zoom link.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone is in. Bishop Gary Gordon didn't remember where I met him the first time. It was in White Horse.
Oh my goodness, that's a long time ago.
In your church. So you assisted us that time with the speaker that we was asking for the World Religion Conference in White Horse.
Right.
So thank you very much. Looking old friend coming together as a panelist. Very nice. Yeah. We're still doing a conference.
Ground is not white here.
Yeah, well, of course, you're not in -50 anymore.
No.
And we went last year in -50. So we did enjoy the winter there. And somehow we got a van, which didn't have the heat. So you can imagine the suffering that goes along with the package. Not having a heat in a van and in White Horse, -50 temperature, suffering grows, so we're happy. So look like his time is 6:02 right now, and we should start the event. I welcome all of you, all our speaker panel, moderator, and all respected our dignitaries. Thank you very much once again joining in this virtual program. We love to host a program as we have done it last 14 events in Victoria with many good attendance. I hope to continue next year. This pandemic has uh, make that happen that we are not able to join physically together, but God willing, it will change and we will meet again soon. But it was important for my community uh, to see that we are connected. And this is what we are doing, that we are connected with you, showing our passion and love and care for you, and building a strong bondage with you that we can last for many years to come. So once again, thank you very much. Without further ado, I'll be starting that program. I will requesting for the blessing ceremony and the recitation of Holy Quran, Mr. Naveed Mirza to please recite the portion of the Holy Quran and the translation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of us. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. Translations of the verses recited before you. I seek refuge from Satan the cursed in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. And we will try you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give glad tidings to the patient, who when a misfortune overtakes them, surely to who when a misfortune overtakes them say, surely to Allah we belong, and to him shall we return. It is these on whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is these who are rightly guided. Chapter 2, verse 156 to 158. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I request the regional president of Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, British Columbia, Mr. Naeem Lakhan, who has known for a number of years, worked together, and many programs that we attended. I remember that together we traveled to Alaska, Anchorage. We hosted one conference together, and it was such a nice to know him, and such a wonderful working relation we have together. He was a 6 year for the local regional president of Vancouver area. Under him were 3 chapters. And before that, he was president of one of the chapter of Vancouver. So well known to him, and he's very fond of the interfaith dialogue. So now I request Mr. Naeem Lakhan to please do introductory remarks, the reason that for hosting such kind of event. Thank you.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May peace and blessings be on you. We are very fortunate that we live in a country and a society where different faiths can get together for a peaceful dialogue. We should be thankful for this freedom and harmony. On behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, I welcome you all. Today's event is a continuation of an initiative taken by the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, may peace be on him. In year 1895, he invited the representative of all the major faiths for an interfaith conference in his hometown, Qadian in India. Conversation regarding various different faiths can provide us with a new perspective and can make us more insightful to the world around us. The guidelines of this event restrict the presenters from criticizing any other faith. Presenters are requested just to give their own faith's perspective and then leave the takeaways to the audience. Many of us do not normally get a chance to know about the other faiths from their own sources. There's that special opportunity tonight, and I'm looking forward to an exciting and informative evening. Thank you very much for your time and effort for joining this 15th World Religions Conference in Victoria. May God bless all of you. Thank you. And I would also like to introduce our moderator for tonight's event. It's my pleasure to introduce Chief Andrew Victor. Mr. Victor is the elected chief of the Cheem First Nation. Before being elected as chief, he served 2 terms as councillor. Since 2002, he has served as a pastor at Chilliwack Native Pentecostal Church. For the past 7 years, he has served on the Indigenous Partnership Council at Trinity Western University. He has previously served on the Aboriginal Ministries Executive Committee of the BC and Yukon Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. He has been married to Melanie for 22 years and they have 4 children. Please join me in welcoming Chief Andrew Victor. Mr. Victor.
Thank you for that kind introduction. OCM CIA. I am Andrew Victor from Cham First Nation, elected chief. And it's an honor and a privilege to come and help moderate this session together with this distinguished panel. And we will have the opportunity to hear from various perspectives so that we can learn from one another and learn how to walk in a good way in how we relate to one another and build upon those relationships together and grow mentally, spiritually, and physically as well. So again, just really appreciate this time to gather together and to learn from one another in a spirit of listening and in a spirit of humility together. My apologies, Rizwan, are we ready to go into the panelists for their presentation?
Yes, sir. You have the program, Chief. So you could start the first speaker of the program. I believe that is Mr. Don Brown from the Baha'i Faith.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if there was other dignitaries.
No, we was waiting for Mr. Gary Anderson, but if he join us, we will include him in later on. But since I don't see it in Zoom panel, so we will just go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
So yes, before we get to our first speaker, just want to note to everyone that the biographies of each of the panelists, my apologies, my office light turns off on me. That the biographies of each of the panelists is on the website, worldreligionsconference.ca. You can click on today's event, and you'll be provided with the profiles of each of the panelist speakers. So our first speaker from the Baha'i perspective, Mr. Don Brown. We'll pass it over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, friends. My short answer to the question, religion in the time of adversity, help or hindrance, is yes. The single greatest challenge facing our world is the recognition that the underlying root cause of the economic, political, social, and environmental crises facing humanity is the lack of unified moral conviction to implement the necessary solutions. And there is no credible replacement for religious belief as a force capable of restoring commitment to moral behavior, both individually and globally. Religion is the key to the unity of the world. Dissension and conflict within and between the world's faith traditions is, in my opinion, the single greatest hindrance to overcoming adversity. Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, reveals, religion, verily, is the chief instrument for the establishment of order in the world and of tranquility amongst its peoples. Verily I say, the greater the decline of religion, the more grievous the waywardness of the ungodly. This cannot but lead in the end to chaos and confusion. I believe we are certainly witnessing this chaos and confusion in today's world. Religion is much more than a guide to individual salvation. It is a means for the reformation of the world. Baha'u'llah reveals the fundamental purpose of animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race, and to foster the spirit of love and fellowship amongst men. Suffer it not to become a source of dissension and discord of hate and enmity. In my view, in order for religion to be a help to address the multitude of adversities facing our world, two fundamental requirements must be realized. First is the recognition of the essential oneness of religion, that at the core of all the world's faith traditions are inspiring universal principles, as exemplified by the Golden Rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, and common moral virtues such as truthfulness, trustworthiness, equity, compassion, and many others. Our law reveals that there can be no doubt whatever that the peoples of the world, of whatever race or religion, derive their inspiration from one heavenly source and are the subjects of one God. The difference between the ordinances under which they abide should be attributed to the varying requirements and exigencies of the age in which they were revealed. All of them, except a few, which are the outcome of human perversity, were ordained of God and are a reflection of his will and purpose. Arise, and armed with the power of faith, shatter to pieces the gods of your vain imaginings, the sores of dissension amongst you, cleave unto that which draweth you together and uniteth you. I believe that this is the key to overcoming religious intolerance and conflict that is plaguing our world. Then religious belief can truly become that credible moral force which humanity so desperately needs. The second fundamental requirement is that no one religious, ethical, or spiritual tradition is capable of mitigating the many adversities facing our world by itself. We've got to do this together. Baha'u'llah reveals, our hope is that the world's religious leaders and the rulers thereof will unitedly arise for the reformation of this age and the rehabilitation of its fortunes. Let them, after meditating on its needs, take counsel together and through anxious and full deliberation, administer to a diseased and sorely afflicted world the remedy it requireth. We are one human family, occupying one homeland, the planet Earth. This is more than an intellectual nicety. It is a moral imperative. The global solutions must meet the needs of all of humanity. This is unifying, inspiring revelation, but how does it actually work in reality? I have a successful local community example. It's called the Suk Multi-Belief Initiative, SMBI. We are a working group of people from diverse spiritual, ethical, and religious traditions who have come together to build the Suk community as a haven of unity and compassion. We are successful because the purpose and values of SMBI are inclusive of religious, spiritual, and ethical traditions. We have significantly diverse views of reality and differing theological beliefs, yet we are tolerant and respectful of our differences and focus on our commonalities centered on the Golden Rule and the common virtues that we have recognized. We are non-confrontational. We do not criticize others or their beliefs. We are free to state the truths as we believe them to be, without belittling the beliefs of others, or by making comparative statements of how our beliefs are better than someone else's. Fundamentally, it is how we apply the Golden Rule and the virtues in our relationships with each other that builds our friendships and confirms SMBI's purpose and values that really matters. One of our most successful projects has been to develop a compassionate action plan for Suk by bringing together representatives of over 30 social services organizations and civic institutions. The plan has been endorsed by the mayor and councilors. We have monitored and updated the plan's implementation over the year, and it's being attached to the municipality's official community plan. Our Suk municipality has been officially recognized as a compassionate community by the Compassion International Organization, and recently, that organization requested that we be featured in an international webinar of compassionate communities throughout the world. In closing, in my view, by coming together and recognizing our commonalities, spiritual, ethical, and religious traditions will not only help in a time of adversity, we can be a key to resolving the global challenges facing our human family. Thank you. Excuse me. pass it on to the moderator, unless you want me to sing for 3 minutes, either way.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Brown, for sharing those words. Appreciate learning from your perspective, and it's a good encouragement to us. Thank you. Well, just a reminder, forgot to say it earlier, but each panelist is provided 10 minutes. And if needed, I will interject just to remind people to make sure everyone gets the fair opportunity to share. Next, we'll call on Bishop Gary Gordon to share from the Christianity perspective.
Great, thank you, Chief Andrew. I wanted to just begin with something that happened in our little introductions that I thought speaks to a wonderful gift that we experience in our growing, our getting older. And Rizwan mentioned that we had met and worked together in Whitehorse. It's a long time ago. Chief Andrew mentioned his grandmother, who I knew so very well many, many years ago. And it's those kinds of memories that forge a long-term, distant relationship of deep respect. And I just wanted to share that is one of the great graces of this event, and I'm so pleased to be part of it. And thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being part of this this moment. In terms of our Catholic faith Christian perspective, one of the gifts that we have in our tradition is our Holy Father, Pope Francis, and some of the work that he has been leading the Catholic Church and the global community in to face this pandemic, and more to face the great divisions that have historically caused all of us on this screen innumerable and enormous pain and suffering. If we are honest with our historic memories, all of our faith traditions have experienced a pain at the hands of one another. And I think memory of the pain is also important because it allows us to heal and to move forward. And so in this moment of time, we are presently in a pandemic and adversity, and it is allowing us, in my view, as a Catholic bishop here on the island, to awaken in people our own individual vulnerability and our vulnerability as human beings on this planet, not only by virtue of the pandemic, but as our distinguished speaker at the beginning spoke, the enormous challenges that face our very environment. And so one of the gifts that I speak about very frequently is that religion can bring people a sense of hope when things look hopeless. I think all religious practice have a great sense of hope because of that foundational attitude and disposition to the Creator, to God. I think one of the things that religion can do in helping people overcome adversity is it can give them a sense of compassion and a sense of community, that they belong, that they are not simply adrift in the intergalactic world, but they belong. They are members of. They have a sense of community, and all of us that are here on this screen, we all belong to a community, and it gives us a great sense of solace. And I think religion does that. I think religion, in most cases, at least in our Catholic tradition, we have a very strong tradition of social justice, of looking out beyond myself to the other. And that is certainly coming to the fore in the midst of this pandemic. One of the things that I like to say to our congregation is that the virus is keeping us physically distant, but it is being overcome by a very dynamic social connection, even on a screen. I have been able to be more connected to the people on the island through live streaming and webinars than I ever could have been if I had to travel around, of course, messing up the environment with my car and all of that. So there's something that's happened and is drawing us to a great sense of communion. I think that the pandemic has also, though it has kept us physically distant, we've become all very aware of our global vulnerability and that we are truly interconnected as a family on this planet. And I want to just leave you with an invitation. I think something momentous is going to happen on February the 4th. You may have heard of it. The United Nations General Assembly has declared it the International Day of Human Fraternity. And on that day in Abu Dhabi, there will be an event for the International Day of Human Fraternity hosted by Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. And that event will feature Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed Al-Tayyab, with our Holy Father, Pope Francis, in a dialogue and in a presentation to the global family to promote this fraternity that for us as Catholics, we know is absolutely critical for the health, the well-being of the planet, and certainly for the health and the well-being of all of us and everybody else that occupies this this garden that God has created so magnificently. And so I just thought I would leave you with that little invitation. Here on Vancouver Island, you'll have to get up at 6:30 in the morning in order to watch it. You can probably access it on the, if you were to Google Human Fraternity Day or on the Vatican News website, it's going to be carried on the Vatican News live for the world so that we all might be able to experience something, I think, of a dimension of the pandemic that though it is a virus that is hurting so many of us, I have family that have died from this pandemic, from COVID-19. I have friends that are still sick from it. Yet there is something that is showing up that is calling us forward out of this adversity. And it is a tremendous sense of we're all in this together. I think Bonnie Henry says that quite frequently. We are all in this together. And I'd like to think that we are in a little lifeboat, and we all need to keep our hands on the oars, row together and paddle together for a good heart and a strong mind, so we come out of this much better than when we went into it. I must beg your mercy and your forgiveness. I have another service at 7 p.m. at the St. Andrew's Cathedral, which I do every day at 7 o'clock, just one little way of connecting the people to try to keep us together socially, though physically distant, with the live stream liturgy. And I'm so grateful for Rezwan, who said, yes, we'll let you go first, Bishop Gary, because we know that you need to get down to downtown Victoria for that liturgy. But I'm so grateful. It's so good to see you. I know this is going to be taped, so I will be able to go back and listen to your other speeches. But please, merciful forgiveness for me having to depart, and may you all have a most blessed evening.
Thank you.
Go in peace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop, for your words. We appreciate the time you're able to share with us. Next, we're going to hear from a metaphysical perspective. Dr. My apologies, my office light keeps turning off on me. Dr. Anelli?
Annelie Dresen.
Annelie, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Ask if you would share, please.
Thank you, Chief. A few days ago, my husband Bill reminded me that we can use a weapon in two ways: to defend ourselves or to attack. This is both simple and profound. However, applying this simple truth to religions, especially in times of adversity, is far more complex. According to some estimates, there are roughly 4,200 religions, churches, and denominations worldwide, and each of one of them has multiple variations. For example, if my information source is correct, there are an estimated 20,000 different types of Christian churches alone. Historically, there always were relations between the main religions and the political systems. In good times, they balanced each other. In bad times, there was discord or even war, as we all know. For example, on one hand, the world religions accepted the government lockdowns and restrictions for live worship recently. On the other hand, fundamentalist groups went into opposition. They met anyway, and some sued the governments for the freedom of expression of their faith. The same principle applies to other extremist and terrorist groups who oppose their political regimes. It all has become a tremendous mess. In 1993, a global movement started. For the first time in history, the Parliament of World Religions, with several hundred leaders, scholars, and representatives of all the world's major religions, agreed that there are common ethical commitments foundational to each of their traditions. They signed a document that became known as the Global Ethic. It consists of a fundamental consensus concerning binding values, irrevocable standards, and essential moral attitudes with 5 directives: a commitment to a culture of nonviolence and respect for life, solidarity and a just economic order, a culture of tolerance and a life of truthfulness, equal rights and partnership between men and women, and a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. The global ethic became adopted by several organizations. It advanced further and inspired new documents, including the Universal Declaration of Human Responsibilities, the Earth Charter, the Charter of Compassion, and more recently, the Fuji Declaration. Metaphysicians attempt to be inclusive and non-judgmental and allow for adversity, freedom of faith, and freedom of speech, which also gets them into trouble sometimes. But what does this all mean for you and for me? There is much we can do. Here are 3 things I believe to be vital to deal with adversity. Number 1 is critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is something that can be broadly defined as thinking about thinking. It is a process of independently analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information as a guide to behavior and beliefs. The American Philosophical Association has defined critical thinking as the process of purposeful, self-regulatory judgment. The process gives reasoned consideration to evidence, contexts, conceptualizations, methods, and criteria. As a general rule, Critical thinking involves developing some emotional and intellectual distance between yourself and ideas, whether your own or that of others, in order to better evaluate their truth, validity, and reasonableness. It is an effort to develop reliable, rational evaluations about what's reasonable for us to believe or disbelieve. It commonly uses logic and science tools because it values skepticism over gullibility or dogmatism, science over pseudoscience, and rationality over wishful thinking. Critical thinking does not guarantee that we will arrive at truth, but it makes it much more likely than any alternatives. Here are just some of the characteristics which are necessary for thinking critically about something. Having a genuinely open mind, differentiating between emotions and reasons, debating knowledge, not ignorance, distinguishing between probability and certainty, recognizing linguistic challenges and potential misunderstandings. Critical thinking must also recognize ambiguities and vagueness in our communications. A person who attempts to think critically must aim to eliminate those factors as much as possible. This can be learned, which of course we highly emphasize at our Metaphysical Academy as well here in Victoria. No one needs a degree in philosophy, science, or even metaphysical science to become a better critical thinker. Some education about fundamental skills is required, but nothing that any average person cannot do. What it does need, though, is dedication and practice. It is most natural that we as humans want to be right. We sort our way through our thoughts, feelings, happy and unhappy memories, or trauma, whether from this life or previous ones. They all left imprints from our perceptions and judgments. We have been given both, our heart and our head, our intuition and intellect. All are equally important. Let's question the information we get from the media, television, and the internet, even that from our schools and universities. Unfortunately, a good indicator to find truth is often found from those individuals who have been kicked out of YouTube, Facebook, Parler, Twitter, and even TED Talks, such as Robert Sheldrake and several others. Number 2 is faith. What is faith? Much is written about faith. For me, faith is a phenomenon of endless interpretation and reinterpretation with a forward momentum. As long as we are here, the divine is a secret, and we are continually challenged to new possibilities of insight. It is not to be taken for granted. However, with this, the withdrawal from creedal dogmatism is essential. Faith includes knowledge about universal spiritual laws of order and ultimate justice. It is also a deep knowing of a source, a magnificent intelligence that created all that is, which we call God. But according to Gandhi, faith must be confronted and enforced by reason. When faith becomes blind, it dies. Number 3 is act. We all are called upon to act responsibly with knowledge and faith. How, where, when, and what to do is up to each one of us individually. We can help or we can hinder. If we want to help, we must employ 3 things: critical thinking, having faith, and acting ethically. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing those words with us. Next, we're going to hear from Islam perspective from Imam Umar Khan.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. I'm going to start my talk today with a few prayers, very brief prayers, which is our tradition. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all the panelists and all the viewers at home. So Chief, I have to give you a heads up. I was born in Pakistan, and in Pakistan, when we're told to speak for 10 minutes, we just smile and say, all right, that means 15, 20 minutes, it's all. So let me know. I'm gonna try my best to stay within that 10-minute time period. And I'm gonna share my screen. I did have a presentation. I thought maybe it could be helpful for people to follow. So I'll start my talk today with just who we are as Ahmadi Muslims. Many of you know Islam, followers of Islam are Muslims, and there's different types of Muslims. And one of the common questions that we get is, what's the difference between you guys, Ahmadi Muslims, and other Muslims? There's Sunni, there's Shia, there's 73 different sects within Islam. And to make a very long answer very short, the main difference is that we believe the promised Messiah has come, and whose picture you see on the left, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. According to the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we take his prophecies of the coming Messiah in a metaphorical sense, that the way Jesus was sent to the followers of Moses as a reformer, we believe that he was that Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, which was prophesied by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for Muslims to reform, for the reformation of Muslims. Again, this is a long, there's a lot of details. Those of you who are interested, our official website is right there, alislam.org. And the pictures that you see to the right are after his death. We have spiritual leaders, and our current leader is Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who is at the far right, and the headquarters of our community currently is in England. So just this brief introduction of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. I'll get right into the topic. Religion in the time of adversity, help or hindrance. So this question, whenever people of faith, when we're posed this question, I think almost everyone here will agree that definitely religion in the time of adversity is a huge help. What I will try to do in the next few slides is share with you. I'm going to try my best to stick with the scripture and what the Quran teaches, as the Quran is the holy scripture that 1.8 billion Muslims follow and try their best to adhere by. So one verse that I'll share with you concerning adversity is that God teaches when times of difficulty come, one of the main principles that we have to keep in mind is the concept of patience. And it's right in front of you in chapter 16, verse 128. And endure thou with patience, and verily thy patience is possible only with the help of Allah. So as Muslims, the Quran is teaching us to have faith in God, number one. Number two is that, endure difficult times and hardships with patience. But the Quran actually also guides us that patience is not an easy, concept to, grasp and, follow through with, especially in times of trials and difficulty. And it actually clarifies and points out that it's actually through God's help and grace also that he bestows that strength of patience upon his people. In another verse, the Quran guides us and says that during times of difficulty, we should seek help with patience, but also with prayer. So prayer is another aspect that the Quran teaches how to help us get through difficult times. And, even if we look at if I was to look from a non-Muslim perspective, like say I was a Muslim, we all, I think, naturally incline towards prayer, right? So whenever we see somebody going through difficult times, when they lose their job or they see the death of a family member, it's a very natural state of man to kind of just, you know, throw themselves to God and be like, you know, if you're out there, I need your help. And that's exactly what the Quran teaches, is that to help get through difficult times, along with patience, prayer is a very important aspect to help us get through those difficult times. And this is another very interesting verse in the Holy Quran, and I was really amazed by it when I first had the chance to study it. And in this verse, God is giving, you know, Muslims a heads up that, look, the way I've set up the world and life is that it's not all a walk in the park. You know, there's going to be some tough times and difficult times that will come upon man. And he summarizes it here that some people will be tried through fear and hunger, loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give glad tidings to the patient. So, and with the pandemic right now, we see many of us suffering through these things with the loss of lives. And over here, fruits doesn't mean like the apples we're growing on our, you know, gardens and orchard, you know, like the trees outside. What fruits represent here is farming and the economy. There's a lot deeper meanings in the Arabic words. So over here, God is telling us that, look, be prepared. These things are going to happen. It's part of life. It's a way for us to rise above and reach higher standards of righteousness, higher standards of spirituality. And when we look at the life of prophets, I mean, you see from Jesus, Moses, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them, that was one of the wisdom God had in putting some of the most severe trials upon them to help them reach higher levels of that connection with God. Now, another aspect of this is also that we could take the example of two friends, right? Some people ask, why are not my prayers accepted? So the founder of our community explained this, that if you take the example of two friends that, say, me and Rizwan are friends, sometimes I might say something and Rizwan will listen to me, but a true friend, it's not just a one-way thing, right? Sometimes Rizwan will say something and I'll say, all right, I'll go with what you're saying. So the same thing with God is that if we consider him a friend, at times, yes, he will accept our prayers, but then at other times, especially during difficult times and trials, he expects that we also accept his will, and you know, the way he created the world, that his practice is that man should go through some sort of difficulty, and in a way it's a blessing in disguise, which I would touch on towards the end. Now, another thing that the Quran teaches is that during these difficult times, the Quran says, Allah bi zikrallahi tatma'innul qulub, that those who believe and whose heart find comfort in the remembrance of Allah, it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts can find comfort. So this is another very interesting principle that the Quran teaches, is that when you're going through difficult times, to find that help and comfort, one of the other ways is to remember God through you know, worship, through recitation of the scriptures, through remembering him how maybe a child would remember his mother or father during difficult times. And another you know, teaching is that during these difficult times, it's God's promise that those people who turn towards him and remain patient and steadfast during difficult times, God promises that his angels will come upon the hearts of those people and remove their fear and grief. And again, if we look at the example of all past prophets, we see in the face of some of the most severe persecution, you see that God bestowed that blessing upon them, where they were ready to, you know, step up, and we see that their fear and their grief was finished, and that was all through God's grace and help. And another thing that we should keep in mind is that during adversities, the Quran teaches that, look, it's temporary. Be patient, you'll get through it, and always remember that after difficulties, times of ease will come. So this also gives some motivation to us as Muslims, that whenever a trial comes, you know, it may be for our benefit, but we don't realize it. But keep in mind, get through that difficulty. Don't give up on God. Don't give up. Be patient, and you will get through it. In times of, you know, better days will come. And even currently, we all have that hope with this pandemic, that eventually we hope and pray that it's in our past and we get over this difficult time. And one of the reasons I'm gonna share with you that why, sometimes we have to go through these difficulties. The Quran, the concept that the Quran teaches is that it's a way for us to actually improve in our relationship with God. It's easy for us in this material world to, being indulged in, material pursuits, money, work, family, children, to kind of lose track of God. And sometimes these difficult times and trials comes as a means for people to kind of knock on the door a little bit from God, that, hey, I exist. Remember, the purpose of your life is to recognize me and worship me. So, and then the verse you see on the bottom, God says, it is these on whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is these who are rightly guided. So ultimately, being patient and through difficult times is a way for us to attain God's nearness and blessings. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with, Chief, I saw you unmuted. So this is the last point I'm going to make, and I will finish my presentation. And one of the questions that I was really itching with when I was preparing for this was that if we know that trials come upon people sometimes from God to help make us better people, right, for advancement, right? So how do we know if God is trying to help us become better through trials, or if it's God's punishment for maybe a sin or mistake that we have come to? And I was really playing around with this question, and the answer I really enjoyed, and I wanted to quickly share as my last point with all of you, is that the best way for me to explain this is the example of a mother's love for her child, right? That's one of the most unique and highest level of love that maybe people could argue is between a mother and a child. Now, if we look at a child, sometimes we have to kind of encourage our kids to study hard, work hard. Now, in the eyes of that child, and I see my kids going through where we're trying to teach them Arabic to, learn the Quran. It's a trial for them. They run away from it. They cry. They say, we don't want this. It's hard to study. But we know that it's good for them. And as a parent, we try to encourage them and help them get through that, right? So that's for their betterment. But when it comes to punishment, one of the ways we could tell it's a punishment is, again, you use that example. When a child breaks the rules constantly and he's not improving, he's not making himself better, then we punish him through, I don't know, timeout, silent treatment. Maybe we take away some of those games and things, favors that, or blessings that, I'm saying blessings, but sometimes video games or something like that, right? So that's a way to kind of tell that sometimes you will be able to tell whether it's God's way to help us become better, or it's a way of him showing his displeasure. Obviously, there's a lot more detail to this. I'll leave it at that because I think my time is finished. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. I completely understand speaking until your heart is done saying what's there to say, but thank you for sticking close to our time frame. We really appreciate that. Next, we'll go to Mr. John Barrows for Christianity Perspective.
Thank you, Chief Victor, for your emceeing us here today. I'm speaking to you from Wasanich territory here in Victoria, and grateful for all the hospitality and kindness that I've received as I'm living here. I'm Anishinaabe from the center part of the country, and also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want to talk about this theme of finding opportunity, peace in the time of this adversity. Here we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and more people in the United States have died from the pandemic than in combat during World War II. As you know, in Canada, over 20,000 people have perished from this disease. And these numbers are a small fraction of those who have battled the disease itself. Many have lost jobs and homes and family members and friends. We are in a time of mourning. We're in a time of challenge, in a time of great contemplation. As we're going through this, at the same time, we see people doing so much to help one another. In particular, people staying at home, maintaining appropriate physical distance to try to slow the spread of the worldwide pandemic. Now, it's not easy to restrain yourself in the name of protecting the life and safety of others. Our first impulse in service is often to rush to people's side and to be with them. And generally that's as it should be. Yet during a pandemic, we serve others by disciplining ourselves. We only go to others when it's essential. And as a result, people living this way, lives have been spared because people have stayed with one another, stayed away, from one another. While there's still too much suffering, sometimes because of the challenge this presents of staying away from one another, we should acknowledge the tremendous service offered through the sacrifices of staying away. Now, of course, staying physically separate does not mean that we must stay our hand in other ways. I found that I've been much busier, more social, and more connected with more people during this pandemic than might otherwise be the case. And there are certainly more needs. And yet there are so many ways to meet these needs. And I'm grateful that we've been given an opportunity to try to learn from others and meet their needs where they are and find all of these different technologies and possibilities to connect with people, seek them out. Now, despite these busy days, I still miss, as I think we all do, being face to face. I think it's just a part of life. We'd long to be with one another. In addition to the expansion of ways to gather from our homes, God has given us many time-honored consolations, which is the need for reflection and silence. We might find in this time a greater way to be able to cultivate peace, even embrace the moment. If I think of the Proverbs, be still and know that I am God. Take that opportunity to walk in the forest or step outside on the sidewalk and feel the rain and the wind on your face, the tremendous blessing that God gives us to be able to draw a breath. And in that silence, remember that love. Or in Isaiah 40, there's this beautiful scripture, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, and they shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This idea of waiting is a very deep spiritual concept. Waiting on God, help us understand where we are in this moment, who we are in relationship to others, and appreciate the power in the beauty of the creation that surrounds us as a consolation, as a way to understand getting through these adversities that we're a part of. When Mary learned that she was to be the mother of our Lord, we read in Luke 2:19, but Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. I'm hoping that this is some of our experiences when we're not able to go out and be with one another in quite the way that we used to be, that we keep these things and ponder them in our heart and find that love of God in that state. When Jesus was starting his public ministry, he went into the wilderness to pray, spent 40 days there. In that time, being apart helped him with his preparation in getting ready to be able to serve others. There's such an example that we can take in this moment, even as we're trying to meet the needs that are present in the ways that we can, that drawing apart in preparation for what will come next when this pandemic has a different stage, when we're receiving vaccines and able to enter into one another's lives more face to face. In Matthew 4:13, we read about Jesus hearing about the death of his friend, his cousin, John the Baptist. It says, when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. I can imagine Jesus there with the seagulls and the wind and the waves, feeling that great sense of loss, feeling towards God, that love, finding preparation in those moments for what comes next. In the Book of Mormon, which is one of the scriptures that I enjoy as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in addition to the Bible, we read that one of our covenants is to mourn with those that mourn, to bear one another's burdens, and to stand as a witness. This idea of understanding as we witness what's going on, being informed by God's will, being informed about the things that we might be able to do to help others and reach them where they are. God said, abide with me. Ultimately, our spiritual life is only as strong as that ability that we have to be able to abide, to be submissive, to say, let God prevail, and to find in those moments that opportunity to deepen our relationship with God and through him with others. We must seek for ways to abide in his work and his will. And this reminds me of a poem that I learned as a young man. It says, Father, where shall I work today? And my love flowed warm and free. And he pointed out a tiny spot and he said, tend that for me. I answered quickly, oh, no, not that. Why, no one would ever see, no matter how well my work was done, not that little place for me. And then the words he spake was not stern. He answered me tenderly, little one, search that heart of thine. Art thou working for them or for me? Nazareth was a little place, and so was Galilee. I appreciate the counsel in that poem, which has me seek out what God wants, not necessarily the big spaces that I long to be in, but understanding this idea of abiding with him, finding this stillness to know that there's a God, waiting upon the Lord, keeping these things and pondering them in our hearts, withdrawing to a desert place, mourning with those that mourn, bearing one another's burdens, that they may like standing as witnesses. Whatever our place of activity, including our pandemic challenged landscapes, my witness is that God has provided ways for us to serve him in his ways, despite the challenges we face and sometimes wanting to do things in our own way. I'm grateful that we have an opportunity in our different traditions to find God's will, what's best for others through that will, as we learn to serve in ways best suited to this place and this moment. It's my prayer that we'll keep all the good that we have and then add to that with what we learn from one another this evening and what we continue to learn from one another as we meet through the years in these beautiful multi-interfaith settings. I'm grateful for the beauty that we have. Gratitude is so much a wonder, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your words with us tonight. Next, we're going to go to have a presentation on Sikh perspective. Mr. Gurdeep Singh.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for Ahmadiyya community for hosting all this and bringing everybody together in this. Trying to view on this adversity, help or hindrance from Sikh perspective. I've got some notes here that I'm going to share with you. Before I introduce myself into the whole subject, one of the things about religion that we are talking about, we have to talk about religion as a whole. Help and hindrance both are very, very evident, as we have heard from all the speakers before me. How can it be hindrance and how can it be help is what we need to really understand from the perspective of the religion. And when we look at this perspective of help and hindrance, there's two types of religion that we see very evident in the world. One is the religion that is of oneself, the inward religion. And then there is the classified religion that we see all around the world. We have seen the number of denominations amount, a number of churches, number of temples, divisions within the churches that we have heard. Now, when we seek that, and it came to me that a little short story in the adversity, which I'm going to give details later on, is that in the adversity, for example, we are walking through the tunnel and it's pitch dark. We have no light, we have no comfort, we have no apparatus to tell us where we're going, but in the faith and the hope that we keep on moving forward, believing that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. And meanwhile, in this process, while we are walking through the tunnel, we are going through the tunnel, we have hope, we have conviction, we have positive attitude, we have faith, and at the end, we also realize it has built our character. And that character is built through this turbulence and through this endurance as we walk in our sojourn and the life that is given to us. In the four-walled religions that we have enclaved ourselves, we need to break away from that. And we need to awaken the religion that is within of oneself, because it is about me, it's not about others. And yet when we talk about religions, when we talk about other religions, our religions, we talk of groups, we talk of others. We never talk about oneself. Now, in the Sikhism, the first stance that Sikhism takes on this is that you are going to find yourself into many situations and scenarios where the ninth Guru Nanak says, as I'm walking through, my associates and my companions have all deserted me. No one remains with me, says Nanak. In this tragedy, the Lord alone is my support. The Naam remains, the holy saints remains, the Guru, the Lord, and the universe remains. Says Nanak, how rare are those who chant the Guru's mantra in this world, because the next stanza, I have enshrined the Lord's name within my heart. There is nothing equal to it. Meditating in remembrance on it, my troubles are taken away. I have received the blessed vision of your darshan. Now, when we look at this, it has been misguiding humanity because it has also become a materialistic and selfish business. Majority of the followers of these religions follow or believe in religion without any understanding. Absence of proper understanding and education of the followers of all religions is causing havoc in the world. Religion is seeing one God in all beings as living truth, but in reality, it is the reverse that happens. As a result, instead of developing spiritual beings, teaching people self-integration, people to tread their own traditional path by sticking to only truth, removing human errors from religions, recognizing the presence of one non-dual spirit everywhere, in everything, and as a living truth, reaching out to people to help them in their genuine spiritual unfoldment, pursuing people to live a truthful life, developing capacity for other religions and practices. The custodians of some organized religions right, or to be something conclusive, exclusive, and separative, and then envelope in converting or proselytizing others into their respective religion. Now, when we take into this, and we have to face before us the past, the present, and the future. The world history reports killing of millions and millions of innocent people by the blood-curdling, intolerant rulers and religious zealots. Now, the question is, if God has made all of us in his own image, then what happened to our inherited divine qualities? Where is our divinity? Because we practice the outward religion, we are only men of cloth. We speak with empty hearts. We have no depth of religion. We believe in one God. We believe that he is the creator of all, yet in his creation we have no love. We divide each other. We hate each other. If we look at the 1940s, the World War II, then after that, we look at other continents where people have been divided and millions and hundreds and thousands have been killed. Some politically and some in the name of religion. Then you start thinking, is it help or hindrance? A man who bastardizes any religion is nothing but they and their followers are going to be a hindrance to this universe, to their own religion, and to the world as a whole. Now, in this adversity, we need to conquer intolerance. But we first need to understand, how should I be tolerant? Somebody comes and slaps my face, somebody comes and spares and breaks me into pieces. I should stand there and be tolerant. We need to understand that tolerance. And from 47th today, if we look at the world today, if we look at the world outgoing American president, what happened at the Capitol Hill? And then if we look what's happening in India right now, it is all happening in the name of religion, trying to pin down others, pin down the minorities, unable to speak the truth, unable to hear the truth, suppress the truth. So how should we be tolerant? Simply put, tolerance means one should be able to bear psychological insult and dishonor from others. In other words, tolerance is the strength of the mind that enables a person to accept pleasant or unpleasant or conducive and unconducive circumstances with even-mindedness and courage. It is the capacity to endure. Is my time over?
Yes.
Okay. The one thing that before I go, I'll be very short on this one. I had this out here. Just let me, because I'm trying to follow this. I couldn't load this up in my computer. Give 1 second here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this lost from the Sri Rag Mahalla Panjma, which is the 5th Guru of Nanak. When you are comforted with the terrible hardship and no one offers you any support, when your friends turn into enemies, and even your relatives have deserted you, and even when all support has given away and all hope has been lost, if you then come to remember the Supreme Lord, even the hot wind shall not touch you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing your words of perspective. It's a pleasure to hear from you. Just wanted to express again the purpose of us gathering together tonight and of this conference is to talk about the beautiful teachings of faith. and how our different perspectives and teachings can help us walk life in a good way. Next, we'd like to turn to hear from a Jewish perspective from Rabbi Louis Sutker.
Rabbi, it's your turn.
He's muted.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, good. Thank you. Want to first acknowledge we're on the unceded Gulgan territory, and we appreciate and acknowledge that. And to echo what my newfound colleagues have been saying, the simple answer to religion, help or hindrance, which I understand is the topic for tonight, is yes. As we have been hearing, religion can both help and can both hinder. What can it help and what can it hinder? The hindrances are sometimes more obvious than the help, because most of us here have experienced our own religious perspective harming us internally within a particular perspective and harming other people outside of the perspective, and have in turn been harmed by. We know that. And so the miracle that I see is that here we are, in spite of that, talking to each other, and more importantly, listening to each other and acknowledging the things that have happened and helping each other to find a way through that. And everyone here so far, and I'm sure will continue, has suggested ways in which we can improve ourselves. And I think it's important to consider the word improve as opposed to perfect. What's important, I think, is the little things that we're continuing to do that help ourselves and to help each other to live together. The fact, take the COVID, the COVID-19, the disaster that has been with us and has harmed so many of us also at the same time. So I made a mistake. I said kavod because the Hebrew word, I have translated COVID-19 to the Hebrew word kavod, and 19 is Tisha Esrei, the number 19. Kavod in Hebrew, some of you know, means honor and respect. Okay? And the number 19, the number 18 is chai, means life. And so 19 is life plus. So one of the things that the COVID, the kavod 19 has taught us is respect for life and respect not only for our own lives, but for each other's lives also. Now that respect has not been universal. That's the positive side that's the kavod side. Okay, kavod also, the sense of the word is heavy. Our liver is our keved, and it's opposed to just being trivial, being light. Okay, so it means honor and respect. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I noticed walking down the street now or going down to the water and doing the walk, people will say, hi, how you doing? I'm from the southeastern states, which is pretty typical. You walk in and you never see somebody you've never seen before and will never see again. Waves at you and says, hi, how y'all doing? Everything like that. But I've seen people start to do that here. And what it shows me is that the kavod, the COVID, has created a sense more of kavod in not everyone, because we've seen the opposite happen also. And we've seen that happen. I've seen it happen certainly within my own spiritual tradition, where people have ignored the science, ignored the safety, in spite of the fact that the main purpose within Judaism is to save a life. And the first person to violate the rules of Shabbat, to save a life should be the rabbi to do that. That's so it says. But in spite of that, the religion aspect of it, what does religion mean? Where does the word come from? Okay. I'm sure some of you know, but you hear the word ligature in there. It means to tie together. So the way we use the word religion is its main purpose is to tie people together, to give a sense. What that happens, of course, is a very positive thing, except that it means that we're together and you're not part of us. Okay? My tradition is very strong in that. Okay? So it's us, we're chosen. Okay? You learn from us, this is the way it's supposed to be. What some of us have done, what I certainly do when I pray that, when it's part of my ritual, is when I hear we are chosen, what I hear is the 2,400 reverberations of that happening among each different religious tradition. We are chosen. Otherwise, why would we all be here in all these many different forms today? And what we're trying to do, in fact, what we're doing a little bit more, is learning a little bit from each other. And that's not so easy, given the histories that we've had with each other sometimes. We've spent a lot of time in slaughtering each other and putting each other down. And now here we are. The other thing that's positive about the COVID, is what are we doing here tonight? We're looking at each other's faces. When does that happen? If we were together, we would be sitting in chairs on a stage and looking out at a mass, hopefully, of people. Instead, here we are, we're looking at each other. We see each other's eyes or eyelids anyway, depending on where each one of us is. It's not so easy. I wrote a poem about why do you give so much credit to all those other poets when I'm the one that should be given the stage, right? But we learn that. We learn to not just endure the talks that other people are giving, but to remind ourselves. We focus, at least what I've been doing, to some degree on my breathing, noticing that, noticing my body. We all have a way of, and at the same time, focusing on something that I've been hearing that I resonate to, that I can live with, that has changed my life to some degree. And what happens, of course, ultimately we're looking for something called peace, maybe. So what is peace? I say, Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Pax Vobiscum, peace be upon you. Namaste, which is a little bit different in that sense. And I apologize for not having any more languages. I do know what I can say, salam also. Okay. But peace, the meaning of peace is really to have a pact, to have a covenant. That's the origin of it. I'm somewhat language obsessed. So the word pact is also from the same root. And it means to have an agreement between each other. And that's what we're starting to do. And we're starting to establish that. Okay? So that we are finding the points that we can agree on, the points that we can disagree on, but can accept as just being different, and the points that we can have very strong, very heartfelt discussions about, still respecting each other and maintaining an atmosphere of love, which is not so easy, where we can be in very strong disagreement. Okay. Global warming, ecology, some of those things that we all working together about these days is one example of that. And I will just end. My rabbi, may he rest in peace, peace be upon him, came up with a phrase that it's kind of a cliche, but I'll do it anyway. I'll say, and this is my blessing for all of us. The only way we can get it together is together. Blessings on all of you and all of us and all of you out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Next, we'll go have a presentation on Hindu perspective from Mr. Vinod. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Your microphone's muted, sir.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
My name is Vinod Bharadwaj. Okay. And let me express my appreciation to the chief and to Rizwan for putting everything together. And I would like to share the material on the screen with you people. Now, one of the things that I think that we were losing perspective in the subject here, religion in the time of adversity, is it a help or a hindrance? I mean, if we take that time of adversity out, religion, is it a help or a hindrance, then it becomes a very large topic, you know. And but the specific thing is, in the time of adversity, is it a help or hindrance? Now, we talk about the Hindu religion. Interestingly, there is no such word in the Sanskrit language, in the Hindi language, for religion. The Hindu religion actually is called the Sanatan Dharma, which translates into the eternal righteous conduct. So it's not a formal religion. It doesn't have any formal founder or whatever. It's just, this is an interesting tidbit, you know. Now, adversity, hardship, distress, sorrow. These are all the adversities that we experience. And the types of adversities may be physical distress, like ill health and pain, emotional distress, grief, loss, or financial distress, poverty, lack of resources, etc. Now, at these times, how does religion, how does the Hindu religion help or hinder? That's what we're talking about. Now, very interestingly, Somerset Maugham, who was a very philosophical author, actually, he said that the Hindu religion is the only religion that explains the existence of sorrow. How does sorrow come about, you know? So anyway, now, how does Hindu religion handle adversity? For that, I'm sorry, I'll have to go into the three elements of Hindu philosophy: the soul, reincarnation, and karma. And what we believe is that God is the divine soul, is the supra soul, the Paramatma. And all living beings, we are physical bodies made of the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space, inhabited by the spirit, by the Atma or soul. So you have to understand that. And quoting from the Gita, the soul is immortal. It can never die. It doesn't perish. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So that's the definition of the soul. Reincarnation. Reincarnation is the religious or philosophical belief that the soul or spirit, after biological death, begins a new life in a new body that may be human, animal, or spiritual, depending on the moral quality of the previous life's actions. So just hang on to all these definitions. The third word is karma. In the Sanskrit language, the word karma literally means action. And action necessarily also includes its reaction. It is a physical law that whenever an action is done, it is followed by a reaction. This means that whatever action one does, a reaction will follow. If one plants a good seed, the resulting fruit will be good. If somebody performs a bad deed, an unwanted or bad reaction will follow. Now, sometimes we say, okay, sure, it makes sense, but how about children who fall ill, or children who are visited by misfortune? Then how do you explain that? That explanation is called prarabdha karma. The law of karma also explains that certain actions must have been made in the previous lives that have caused adversity to manifest now. So a philosopher in the US, actually, he said, karma has no menu. You get served what you deserve. So very nice way of putting the thing. Now, how is the Hindu religion a help during times of adversity? When we understand that our joys as well as our sorrows are the result of our own actions, karma, the joy becomes more enjoyable and the adversity becomes more acceptable and bearable. And how is it a hindrance? If we tend to become fatalistic, if we say, oh, well, whatever will be, then our beliefs become a hindrance to our well-being and happiness. Now, in the Gita, Krishna says, you have the right to karma only, but never to its fruits. This is one of the very profound couplets, by the way, of the Gita. One of the most important couplets of the Gita, where they say that you have the right to your action only, never to its fruits. And let not the fruits of action be your motive, nor let your attachments be to inaction. So like in the West, we say, keep your eyes on the prize. That's quite an opposite thing here. You have to always focus on what action you're doing, what karma you're doing. And if the action is good, it will produce good results. And if the action is not good, then you'll get a bad result. And you will then you will then review your actions and now religion as hindrance. Any interpretation that tells us that we are at the mercy of a preordained set of circumstances leads to inaction. Inaction leads to misery. That would be a classic example of religion as hindrance in adversity. And religion as help. If we focus on performing righteous actions, then any adversity that may be encountered will be understood to be the result of past life actions. These adversities are to be endured, worked through, and overcome to evolve spiritually for the next life. This is very important in the Hindu philosophy. Because when one has worked through all the negative karma, all the bad deeds, one is released from the cycle of reincarnation. That state is called nirvana. Nir means without, vana means the rope that binds you. It means the release from the cycle of birth and death and merging of the soul with the supra-soul or God. So this, in short, is the way the Hindu religion helps in times of adversity, and it can also hinder if the interpretation is not proper. Thank you very much. I hope I've made myself clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you sharing those words with us. It was very good to hear from so many different perspectives. In life, I think it comes down to the question of how should I live? We face so many different things in life, and we struggle with how should I respond? How should I live? And with adversity and sorrow, it's very difficult. But in reflecting upon the teachings of my elders and teachings of my faith tradition, there is resilience and there is transformation. You can see in the background of the picture that I have on my screen, that's Mount Chiam. That's a transformation story within our teachings of a woman being transformed to watch over the people, to watch over the river and the salmon. And so within these teachings that we have, and with the many great words from the distinguished panelists tonight, there is character and there's values. And how we respond with our character and values, we can see the tension of hindrance or help. But as we rely upon these teachings that we have, we will continue to learn and grow how to walk in a good way and how to walk together with one another in a good way. At this time, going to throw something new at the panelists. There was a question that has come forward and wanted to provide you a few moments to respond to this question. Is there anywhere in the respective scriptures or teachings where the pandemic is foretold and our responsibility towards it. So open that question up to the panelists. That was something that has come forward that in this discussion of in times of adversity, what teachings and what scriptures are there to help us understand this pandemic and our responsibility towards it. So again, open up to the panelists to respond. Yes, Rabbi.
In the Torah, it's very clear that there are occasions when people present with, it's often translated as leprosy, but a skin disease. And on that occasion, the priests were also acting as kind of doctors and physicians. So that person had to go into isolation, okay? And until that changed, or it didn't change. And then there were people, they had to go into water to purify themselves after a period of time. So there were aspects of this. And also during the Black Plague and the bubonic plague and everything, the general prevailing thing was to isolate and try and minimize the contagion factor about this. So it's not exactly, of course, what we're dealing with right now, because they're all different. But there are some examples in our scripture to guide how to deal with these kinds of situations.
Yes, Mr. Burrows.
I think you see in Jesus's ministry that he was constantly encountering those who were sick and afflicted in body and in spirit, and he went about doing good, trying to bring to pass the wholeness, the healing that God will give to us. And so it's not a direct foretelling of a particular moment, but it's a foreshadowing and an exemplar for the way we should be acting when we're encountering people that need aid, assistance, love, encouragement, compassion. And so I would put that forward as a possibility in terms of helping the person think through the question that you've asked.
Thank you.
What was the exact question, Chief?
So the question was, is there anywhere in the respective scriptures or teachings where the pandemic is foretold and our responsibility towards it? Imam?
Yeah, so I'll try my best to answer it. So I know in the Holy Quran there are some instances where things like the plague have been mentioned before it happened as a warning for people's sins and as a potential punishment. As far as this pandemic, I'm not in any position to say that it was specifically mentioned in the Holy Quran. One of the other things that Islam teaches is that when it's a warning from God, usually a messenger of God clarifies that warning to let people know that a certain punishment is from God. But at the same time, we don't say that all natural disasters or illnesses and viruses are God's punishment, but they can be included after a warning. I'll give you one example. The founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in India, he mentioned once that he had a dream in which he saw angels planting black seeds in the land of Punjab, where he was from. And he said that God has revealed to me that the interpretation of this dream was that the plague is about to hit. And he actually wrote a book called Noah's Ark that God had revealed to him that this would be a sign of warning that someone from God had come and the people did not accept him. And it did hit, and those of you who are interested can check in almanacs. And many thousands of people died as a way of, so that's different in the sense that a warning was specifically mentioned, but at the same time, we don't say that So for this pandemic, I'm in no position to say that it was specifically mentioned, but there are instances that sometimes they can be part of God's, displeasure with our actions.
Thank you.
Well, if we interpret this whole situation from the point of view of the action and reaction, the karma theory, then if we look at the devastation, the environmental devastation that we have wrought upon the earth by our actions in the past 10 or 15, 10 decades, then it is actually nature taking its toll. So, can you hear me, Chief?
Yes.
So, it's really a reaction of nature, whereby it is reacting to all the devastation that has occurred, and but this specifically this pandemic hasn't been mentioned in any of the Hindu scriptures and all that, except that if you do not respect the environment, then the environment is going to react. It's not going to respect you. So we have to reform our actions.
Thank you. I see Mr. Brown, you have your hand up.
Unmute yourself, Mr. Brown.
There you go. Okay, I just wanted to say that in terms of this, one of the interesting scientists that I was working with at the Baha'i World Center said the thing that's going to capture that was going to be severe on the world is not war or anything, it's going to be bugs. So I think this pandemic is an example of that. I just wanted to read this one statement that was said by Shoghi Effendi, who was the leader of our faith from 1921 to 1957. In 1952, he shared this statement with one of the pioneers visiting him in the Holy Land, in Haifa. He said, in the future, the negative forces will become more and more powerful. The negative forces will be like a hurricane storming, and you must find your way to the center of the hurricane. Many believers will be swept away. You must find your way to the center where it is quiet and it is calm. And the faith you have one day will not be sufficient for the next day. You must constantly deepen, or you will be at the mercy of those stormy negative forces. And I think the forces that we're thinking of is, when we think of the pandemic, it's certainly on top of mind today. But if we look at the other adversities facing our world in terms of climate change, in terms of political instability, and those many other forces, it's just one of many things of the hurricane that we're living in right now. And we really need to find ways to come together to deal with it in a positive and unified way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Singh?
Yes, the two segments of the questions that I would like partisan this to. Number one is there any prophecy written in the scriptures? The answer is no. The whole scriptures are written for the guidance, how to walk your life through this. And what we have done is we have brought this up onto ourselves. We as a human race have neglected every piece of the nature, and now we have brought up this upon ourselves. And the scriptures guide us. We need to awaken our conscience. As you can see, millions and millions of people today are consciously dead. They have no idea why they're going to their temple or to their church or to their mosque. whatever, why they are praying, what benefit it is to them, or they are just going there to be part of the flock. This whole dilemma about the religion, we have to be really open and bring this out and speak very, I would say, openly and be transparent and admit our mistakes where we are directing ourselves to. We cannot speak about infinity and then segregate everybody in a very finite terms. That defies the whole purpose of the world of dharma, religion, whatever you want to call it. So in the scriptures and in the Sikh dharma, or you can say the Nankian Bani, is that you respect all, you love all, you treat everybody equal, you do not discriminate. And at the every day in the morning and in the evening prayers of the Sikh, they say, Tere Pane Sarbat Ka Pala. In your order and in your hukum, we wish well to everybody.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Anelli?
Yeah, I just would like to make a comment to the question that was asked to the panel. It says here, if God is all merciful, all religions agree on this basic premise. And why is there this concept of punishment so necessary in all religions? Why is there this contradiction? From a metaphysical perspective, God doesn't punish. God has created a universe that is structured in such a beautiful, unerring way that it regulates itself. So in our belief, there is no God sitting above the cloud and giving us all these rules and orders, but the laws of the universe are so beautifully designed and just that we can trust that. And I think that is probably not unlike the Hindu tradition of what I understand. So that was one of the greatest learnings that I had as a metaphysician, that God actually doesn't punish. He is just there. He loves us, he or it or all that is, whatever name we choose to give it to this incredible something that is the source of everything and all that is. And so the understanding of universal laws and principles and their tremendous, like a huge orchestrated structure, is taking care of everything. And which implies so that we also need to act, but that in the end, if there is anything that we don't have any judicial justice system to regulate, it will be taken care of. And that has been a great consolation for us when there have been things we cannot directly impact and influence. So I wanted to share that because this is such an important aspect of where we're coming from as metaphysicians, that there is no vengeful God. Thank you.
You're a good Hindu.
I'll just like to take this time to raise my hands to each of the panelists and to say thank you for your sharing of your heart, your teachings, to bring these to our lives, to enrich our thinking and how we respond to life. So I'd just like to thank you, and just again, just thank you to this opportunity to moderate this time together. Just want to remind everyone that each panelist's bio is on the website, worldreligionsconference.ca. And I believe after the recording is finished, it will be on the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to access it from the website as well. At this time, I'll turn it over to Rizwan.
Thank you very much, Chief Andrew Victor. I think so. This is time for our president of the Victoria chapter to say a vote of thanks. His son was not feeling well today. So I'm not sure that he can join us, but he's still alive and listening to this conference. Mr. Mansoor Oganbat, are you available? It looks like he's listening, but probably the son is not feeling well. He's much more concentrating on that. So, on behalf of him, for Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at Victoria and a British region of Ahmadiyya Muslim, like to say thank you to moderator for spending a precious time. Really, so much happy that working with you and miss your company. So that's a rain check to get together next time. And same time, all the panelists, you have done an awesome job. Thank you very much. Not preparing such a wonderful presentation, but also endorsing the conference. In the end, after half an hour or an hour, you will see the actual attendance of the YouTube on this link. If you click again after half an hour, you'll be able to see attendance. At this time, the numbers are showing are not so accurate because this is a kind of trafficking coming and going. Make a tea, have a coffee, eat lunch, and come back and after 5 minutes, listen half an hour, things like that. And this is what I see. Sometimes when we see the attendance are not exactly the one. For example, we just did our head office did this program, astonishing story of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And at that time was showing 7,200. And after half an hour, all of a sudden to 26,000. So, and now it's a 47,000 viewers because people are probably still following the program. So we will see the actual attendance. So I thank you, all of you. May God bless all of you for strengthening interfaith dialogue. I hope to see all you coming soon, and hopefully next year we will have an actual conference coming to Victoria as we do it. And I am praying that probably this year we'll be able to host an actual event in September in Prince George, but we do it, that was our actually pioneer city that we started the interfaith dialogue outside of Greater Vancouver in 2003. And that was our first event, which was so successful that we thought, to go many cities. At one time, we went to 18 different cities to host the interfaith dialogue from east to west, north to south, Northwest Territory and Yukon. And we still do it Yukon, and our Calgary chapter does in Northwest Territory now. So all these things, good things are happening. Our next event is on March 2nd, same time, 6 o'clock. And the topic is where is God during here's a poster that he posted by Tahir Ahmed. Tahir Ahmed is an excellent, our coordinator. He's the one who coordinate all the Zoom link, show us the program, set up the power presentation. So this was still under construction, this poster, but he's showing to you. This is the next event is happening here. We call World Religion Conference Abbotsford, but it's a virtual event. So we have the similar panel speaker from the Jewish perspective to Baha'i, a Christian, Latter-day Saint, and moderated by, of course, Chief Robert Lewis. Number of people know him, a very famous person in this world of British Columbia. So thank you very much, Tahir, for showing such a presentation, and thank you very much for your such a good work that you do it all the time with us. I was showing you can show your face sometime. Only thing we see a host. So if you like to see who's the Tahir Ahmed looks like, might he wants to open his camera? Well, if it doesn't happen, then okay. Here's a Tahir Ahmed. Yeah.
Hello everyone, it's me Tahir.
Tahir Ahmed is a very good coordinator. He works for Abbotsford City Hall. He's a urban planner for them. And for us, he plans all these conferences to show us that what conference look like on a Zoom channel. So thank you, Tahir, for doing good work for us. And thank you for all volunteers.
Just want to mention one thing. I personally am very thankful to everyone to make some time, and that's actually you guys who make this event successful. It's the participant and the presenters and the panelists. So I once again thank you all.
All right, thank you. So thank you very much once again. God bless you. Thank you to all volunteers, work hard to promote this conference. To hope to see you soon. In the meantime, I'll take a rain check from all of you. I'll invite you again for the next conference. May God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
There's one, it is raining, but I don't know about the check.
Yeah, the rain is a check.
Anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I couldn't. It's just
Okay, you can speak now. Actually,
he just woke up and he was like crying, demanding for food. But he was like, he wasn't informated before.
Okay.
So
I did mention about your son's condition.
If
Yeah.
you can hear the background noise, that's it.
Okay. May God bless him and give him good health.
Amen. Amen.
Rizwan, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Rizwan, is there somewhere where we can get everybody's phone number so that if we want to talk to somebody, if I want to talk to the chief, or is there a phone number somewhere in your?
Yeah, if Chief like to share, we will send you. Chief.
Yeah, feel free to share.